friends, I'm Sarah. Welcome back to my channel, Sunset Bow Tarot. So I am going to be doing my rather belated, as it is, I believe, the 16th or 15th or 16th today of May. I'm going to be doing my belated April favorites. Not a lot actually to talk about for the month of April, so hopefully this will be a pretty short video, but there were just a few things that I wanted to mention. I will say that I spent an awful lot of time in April doing some things that I do actually kind of plan to make some separate videos on in the future. So you know, it's again, I'm not probably going to talk about a lot of stuff in this favorites video, but I will share just some of the normal categories, you know, decks I worked with, of which there's really only one, you know, fun experiences I had, books, TV, movies, etc. And yeah, let's go ahead and get started. So I really only worked with one deck in the month of April. I had made the decision ahead of the month that I wanted to do a deep dive with one particular deck. And the reason is because I was really excited to work with that deck. I don't normally do like a month-long deep dive with a deck. I normally like to, you know, really tailor the deck that I pick to whatever reading I'm doing and whatever the topic of the reading is going to be and whatever I'm sort of feeling intuitively drawn to for that reading. But in this case, because this deck really changes up the system of tarot, I really wanted to spend some quality time with it. And I also had just really fallen so in love with the way that the system works and with the artwork. And there was an Instagram challenge happening that seemed like a really good fit with this deck. So I decided to go ahead and do that. So, and if you're interested in seeing, you know, my Instagram challenge posts using this deck, my Instagram is linked in the description box down below. But anyway, that deck is the Witch's Wisdom Tarot. So this is the bag. I actually changed the bag strings because it has those, it had those like jute, I think it's jute. It's like rope, you know, like, or twine, like rough twine material. And that always irritates my skin. So I put just some blue and green ribbons in. The only reason I use blue and green is because I didn't have enough blue to do that, just to match the design on the bag. But anyway, I kind of like it because it is a very nature-based deck. So anyway, again, this is the Witch's Wisdom Tarot. This is by Phyllis Curott and Danielle Barlow is the artist. Sorry, I just couldn't remember for a second there. And this deck is so wonderful. It has these really beautiful, you know, watercolor style artwork. And it, you know, it's an absolutely gorgeous deck. It's very pagan. It's very earth-based. It's very sort of empowering in terms of, you know, really speaking to being on a path and really developing your sense of self, which is what made it really good for the challenge that I was using it for, which I think was called the Sacred Self Challenge. It was by Lionhearts over on Instagram. And it's just an incredible deck. But the really cool thing about it is that the system of it is super different. And I had initially thought that I wasn't going to buy this deck because the system, it changed up the system of tarot. And that always sort of, you know, it's one of those things where I know if it changes up the system, I'm probably not going to use it to read for other people. I would probably only use it to read for myself. And so it just sort of automatically limits the kind of utility of a deck for me. So I'm always a little bit iffy on the idea of decks that change up the system of tarot. But in this case, I watched a walkthrough by Lisa Pepez, who did a wonderful walkthrough of it and really talked about the way that the system works. And the way that it really works is that the major arcana are really backwards in this deck. It starts with the World and then goes to the Fool. And, you know, the idea of it being that the normal tarot arcana, like the normal Fool's journey, is this sort of journey from the material realm to the spiritual realm, whereas this is really more of a journey to the material realm, back to the earth and back to being connected with the earth. And so it actually ends with the Fool and venturing out into the world, as opposed to, you know, the normal progression. So that really resonated with me, and I just got really excited about the idea of using this one and the way that they describe the journey of the pilgrim. They call it the pilgrim in this deck. Really made a lot of sense to me. And so I will say that the guidebook for this deck is really excellent. Obviously it's indispensable to reading with this deck because the deck has a totally different system, but it's really good. It has great information on each of the cards. It really explains not just the meanings behind the cards, but it gives you for each card wisdom, which is sort of like the story of what's going on in the card. It gives you the essence, which is the keywords really of the card. It gives you counsel, which is a sort of more developed kind of discussion of what the card is telling you. And then it gives you magic, which is basically an idea for some kind of ritual or magical activity that you can do that really sort of gets at the energy of that particular card. So it's a really, really good guidebook and a really beautiful, wonderful deck. I had an amazing experience with it. I really loved it. And, for sort of a first time doing a real month-long deep dive with a deck, it ended up being a really great experience. So, there may be other decks that come along in the future where I will consider doing the same thing because, again, it's not something I normally do, but I really enjoyed the exercise and I really enjoyed, in this case, working with this deck with a particular Instagram challenge that really kind of evoked the strengths of the deck in a really good way. So it was a lot of fun. So that, again, was basically the only deck I worked with in April, which is, again, the Witch's Wisdom Tarot by Phyllis Curott and Danielle Barlow. The other kind of major tarot related thing I did in April, I'm not actually going to talk about. I will say that I spent a solid chunk of April in a total fugue state with some friends working on a tarot related project that probably very few of you are actually going to be interested in, but we are still going to do some videos on it. So, keep your eyes out for that, I guess. We had absolutely the most fun. Honestly, I think it was like the most fun I've ever had working on any project in my entire life. And again, it is a very niche interest, but we'll talk about that more in the future, but like full fugue state for at least like a week and a half to 2 weeks, just working on this project. So that was a lot of fun. So books wise, I did not actually do a ton of reading in the month of April. I did read the first 2 books in the Percy Jackson and the Olympian series. And again, I have to credit Lisa Pepez because she mentioned this on her channel and it reminded me that I had never read those before. And I had actually kind of been put off by the first movie, which I didn't think was very good. But I've only ever heard wonderful things about those books. And I also am at a point where my nephew is 11 going on 12. He's about to go into middle school and he's such a cool kid and he does really like reading. And so I always want to be able to have books to recommend to him. And I don't think he's read those, but I did want, before I said, I bet you'd really like the Percy Jackson series, nephew, I wanted to read them first before I recommended them so that I knew, like what they were like and what they were about and if I thought they were okay and all that kind of stuff. So, so I did read the first 2 books in that series, really enjoyed them. Just a fun, young adult read, or middle grade. I guess they would be probably middle grade. But the kind of thing that I would have loved when I was a kid because I was obsessed with Greek mythology and it was just, it was clever. It was one of those things where it was definitely middle grade books, but the kind of thing where I was like, boy, if I had read these when I was in 6th grade, I would have been obsessed and like pretended to be a Greek demigod and, which I kind of already did actually at that age, but I had a big interest in Greek mythology and yeah, anyway, long stories. But in any case, they were really fun. Good reads, clever, and I just really enjoyed them. TV wise, I am still pretty much completely addicted to Murder, She Wrote. We're into season 4 now. That's basically all I spend my time doing. And yeah, so far in May, I've actually finally started watching some other different TV, but I've spent so much time just watching Murder, She Wrote. You guys, it's the best freaking show. I love it so much. I also keep up very diligently with any and all BTS related television shows. So I obviously watch Run BTS every week, and I also, am slowly catching up on their previous shows like Bon Voyage and so forth. Anybody who's not interested in BTS is not interested in this at all, but I love them. So I do actually spend quite a lot of time watching BTS related content. So there's always that as well. In terms of other fun things in the month of April, I got my second COVID vaccine, and then 2 weeks passed, and then I was vaccinated. Like, for real, legit vaccinated, which has been absolutely incredible. You know, obviously if I go out in public, I'm still wearing a mask and everything, but I was able to go over to a friend's house who I hadn't seen in over a year, in person, and went over to her house, and she and her husband and another friend were there, and I got to read tarot for all of them in person at their house. And it was so weird because when I got to their house, I initially didn't recognize it because at some point in the past year they had painted it and she had never told me. And so I was like driving up to her house being like, where the hell is her house? This is so crazy, before I realized that it was like blue now instead of yellow, and got there and was like, when did you paint your house? But it had been so long since I had been there, and we just had a fabulous time. Like, seeing people again is so weird and wonderful. And I also finally went out and did some errands that I had been putting off for literally a year, you know, going shopping, taking stuff to Goodwill, just like going out and about in the world. Again, still wearing a mask, but, you know, pretty much not feeling afraid or anxious. I have pretty significant struggles with anxiety. And so, you know, just even masked before going out in the world felt so anxious to me, and now it just doesn't anymore, and it's been wonderful. It's just like I can go places and do stuff. I got to go to Michael's and Joann Fabrics, which were two of the things I was most excited about, because I'm so like a craft person and I love that kind of stuff. I love feeling yarn before I buy it, you know, like I love just going and poking around and spending time out in the world, going outside, like all of that stuff. It just finally feels like I don't need to be as nervous anymore, and it's just been really wonderful. So that's been kind of the other big fun thing in the month of April. And so far now in May, I have plans to get together with more friends. I've been in touch with my voice teacher about restarting voice lessons because she's vaccinated now. And you know, we might be able to even start doing choir again in the fall. You know, all of these things that I had not been doing and had been missing for such a long time, and being able to see friends and all of those things. The world feels really different now, and it feels more open and just available to me. And it's like, started feeling like a person again instead of a like little mole living in a burrow in the dark, you know? So it's been really wonderful. So vaccines, what a great invention. Anyway, like I said, I was going to keep this pretty short, so there will definitely be some more videos coming up talking about some of the other stuff that has been going on in April, but yeah, it was a good month, and it's also spring here in Minnesota, which is the most wonderful time of the year. Not Christmas, but spring. Everything's green. My lilacs are blooming. It's just, I don't know, things are good. So anyway, thanks so much for watching, everyone. Have a great one, and happy spring. Bye.